Hello Internet, Azeth here. The Final Fantasy games used to be my all-time favourite game series. Today I'm going to share my favourite top 10 Final Fantasy games of all time. I'll only be including main entry numbered Final Fantasy games. I'll generally have more to say the lower down the list I get. And I'll not be including the awesome MMORPGs 11 and 14, as it's very difficult to directly compare them with single player games. Final Fantasy I is where it all began, with the 4 Warriors of Light as any of the original 6 jobs of your choosing. It's a pretty fun, classic adventure acquiring the 4 crystals and ultimately saving the world. While a little basic by today's standards, this was not only the humble beginnings of the Final Fantasy series, but many other RPGs that borrow from the formula. I do prefer the PS1's remastered visuals over the original Nintendo version, but even for such an old Nintendo game, the music is still really catchy, and the music will continue to pave the success for the future of Final Fantasy. Final Fantasy III is the first Final Fantasy game that truly stood out and really impressed me personally. This is the first in the series that allows you to customize and change your character's job throughout the game, which makes for some really interesting and tactical gameplay through managing a party of different roles. The world has quite a few memorable locations, such as the Crystal Tower and the World of Darkness, which I got revisited in Final Fantasy XIV. I can remember the overworld map being huge with a variety of different airships to explore the world. While the 3D remake of Final Fantasy III is visually better, the new user interface sucks. I think I actually prefer the original classic Nintendo game. It's Final Fantasy V that pushes the job system to its peaks. Progressing the game will unlock exciting new job types, from Summoner, Mystic Knight to Necromancer. Equipping a second job as a sub-job make for some really fun experimentation through combining jobs together. What's really great about Final Fantasy V is that through this job system, you can play the game in thousands of different ways. I can remember that there were a few little twists with the characters I played through the course of the game that made me enjoy the story so much more, and the reoccurring character Gilgamesh was a great addition to the game, and his battle music, Clash on the Big Bridge, is pretty memorable and a fan favourite. Final Fantasy XII returns you to the world of Ivalice, where Final Fantasy Tactics took place. 12 plays quite unusually, because it seems to borrow a few mechanics from the MMORPG Final Fantasy XI. Complementing the odd combat system are gambits, allowing me to personally program my character's AI the way I want. I can make someone a healer or a tank. It's really satisfying seeing my gambits work effectively. I was never really a big fan of the bland characters Van and Penelo, but the badass sky pirate Balthier more than made up for them with his brilliant voice acting. And one last note, I did quite enjoy the hunt system, effectively hunting monsters and elusive elite targets for generous rewards from the guilds. Final Fantasy IV takes a step back from the job swapping or customization system. It manages to tell a great story with an even better cast of characters. Final Fantasy IV really marks the point where the 2D gameplay, story and music really evolve, with the extra power of the Super Nintendo. When I think of the legendary fantasy jobs of the Final Fantasy series, it's a lot of Final Fantasy IV's characters that come to mind: Cecil the Dark Knight, Kain the Dragoon, Rydia the Summoner, or even Yang the Monk. Final Fantasy X introduced the series to a new generation of 3D hardware, meaning gorgeous visuals and the addition of voice acting, a first for the series that allowed for an evolved form of storytelling. Gameplay does become a little bit more linear with number 10, but it still offers plenty of exploration, side activities, and the option to revisit areas. I'll be honest, I didn't really like the Blitzball minigame that much, but I can still appreciate it. I love 10's progression system, as in the sphere grid, as well as managing the super powerful Aeons, and making use of these systems to tackle the huge amount of endgame activities, from battling Dark Aeons, getting everyone's ultimate weapons, and facing off against the super tough Penance boss. Final Fantasy IX is an excellent RPG that marks a return to Final Fantasy's roots, bringing back the older Final Fantasy setting with a great story and cast of characters. Every character has something different going on and their own problems to face, some you might find relatable. There's a few really epic moments that come to mind, battling the third Black Waltz, Alexander and Bahamut battling, and Kuja looking down on the broken party. I really enjoyed the chocobo digging and chococraft system, which net me coloured chocobos and access to Ozma, the secret endgame boss. There's also a pretty great card game, which makes me wonder why Square Enix didn't include card games in future single-player Final Fantasy games. Final Fantasy VIII is by no means a perfect game. It has its flaws such as the draw system, monster level scaling, and one or two weak plot points, yet I still thoroughly love this game. Being a part of Balamb Garden's mercenary force, Seed, makes for a very unique story experience with plenty of surprises. While exploring the world and trying to acquire all of the Guardian forces is really fun, challenging, and compelling. And fully understanding those Guardian forces and somewhat complicated junction systems makes for some extremely addicting customization heavy gameplay. And let's not forget Triple Triad, my favourite iteration of Final Fantasy card games, at least until I have to play by other region rules. Getting to convert rare cards into really useful items using Guardian Force abilities makes the card game even more exciting and rewarding. The scale and size of Final Fantasy VI is ginormous. Cramming this game into a single Super Nintendo cartridge is a feat of its own. 6 has an absolutely excellent story and a great cast of characters, with a few oddballs including the pretty memorable Ultros, the perverted octopus. What I really like about the story is, it's the only Final Fantasy where the characters completely fail in a catastrophic way, and these broken characters have to go beyond the ends of the world to stop a lunatic. The soundtrack is incredible. I'm a big fan of the battle themes and Terra's theme. Again, it's baffling how they managed to fit all of this onto a Super Nintendo cartridge. I really enjoy doing the extra endgame activities too, and the Game Boy Advance version of the game is even better, adding 2 challenging dungeons, 4 more summons, new ultimate weapons, super bosses, and more. I feel like Final Fantasy VI is an underrated game, or at least unknown. I think a lot of gamers have missed out on something amazing. I'd ask for a remake of Final Fantasy VI, but I know the Square Enix of today just aren't the same masters of storytelling and turn-based RPGs that Square and Squaresoft were. I'm pretty confident they'd butcher this masterpiece. Final Fantasy VII is my personal favourite Final Fantasy game of all time. I love so many elements of this game. The materia system is fantastic, and it's so fun experimenting with different combinations of materia, and it's crucial to overcoming some of the game's extra endgame optional challenges. Final Fantasy VII easily has the best minigames of any Final Fantasy. Chocobo racing, snowboarding, motorcycling, submarine missions, battle arenas, roller coaster shooters, real-time strategy battles, and a ton of smaller minigames. I've spent a stupid amount of time at the Gold Saucer, which is a location dedicated to minigames, and a lot of them have some really compelling rewards. Every time I replay this game, I'm reminded why this is my favourite game of all time, through absolutely incredible story moments. It's just so high energy from start to finish. I can remember thinking that the entire game took place in the city of Midgar, and after a pretty insane escape from the city, I was absolutely gobsmacked by the overworld map and the scale of the game. Everyone knows Aerith's story, but some of my other favourite story moments include discovering the truth behind Cloud's muddled up memories, returning to and storming the streets of Midgar, the weapons attacking and invading the Northern Cave and confronting Jenova and Sephiroth. And with any good Final Fantasy, the soundtrack makes every aspect of the game better. At times, Final Fantasy VII is batshit crazy. I feel like Square Enix of today wouldn't let you play as a terrorist or cross-dress as a woman, using lingerie from a brothel to break into a pimp's mansion. I could go on endlessly singing praises about the game for a few hours, but I think it's best I stop there, at least for a top 10 list. Those were my top 10 Final Fantasy games. Thanks for watching and sticking to the end of my list. What's your favourite Final Fantasy? Post your answer in the comments, and if you liked this video, consider hitting the like button or subscribing for more gaming news, opinions and professional game reviews. Bye for now.